Welcome everyone to our ScreenCraft Works cross-border conversation on maintaining your creativity, with a huge thank you to Genelec for supporting this round of talks, and a huge thank you to our four wonderful speakers, Shireen, Gabrielle, Kathy, and Arnold, who will introduce themselves.
My name is Shireen, she, they, and I'm a music composer and producer, originally from Kolkata in India, currently based in Los Angeles, California, but actually currently right now I'm actually back in India. I'm a musician and composer for film and television and video games and media and stuff.
Hey guys, Arnold Cifax Jr. I am also a film score composer. I don't know why I didn't think about them like that. You're also one. I'm currently working in, I'm in the US. I'm currently working out of Madison, Wisconsin.
My name is Kathryn Robinson. I live in Chicago. I am an editor, video editor, and I go by she, her, and I'm happy to be here.
Hi guys, I'm Gabrielle Watts. I'm an animation producer, writer, and visual storyteller with big dreams of becoming a showrunner. I work at Listen Caribbean, an animation studio based in Kingston, Jamaica. My work involves creating a wide range of content from treatment trailers to full-length features.
I think this is how we're all going deeper, talk about what got us into what we wanted to do. I started out as a drummer and a singer. I sang professionally in a boys choir. My whole life has been music, and everything I was doing, I'm like, this is great, but it's like, it's not scratching the itch. Like, it's not getting me to what I wanted to do, right? So they didn't even truly consider music to be a full-time job, or that it could be a full-time job. And my friend Sean was a director. He had just came back from LA. He was a film student, for a while. So he just came back from LA, wanted to score his short film, him and his friend's short film. And I did it on the iPad. I'm like, I've always wanted to do this. So, okay, let's do this. I tried that out. And seeing how the music affected the scenes really started spinning something in me, right? And then another director approached me, asked me to score their short film. And I scored that one, and we won $10,000 award from Film Festival. And somewhere between those two jobs, I was like, this is what this is what I want to do with like my entire life.
I come from a totally different background. I worked for the FBI for a number of years, and it was
What? That's insane. I don't know what I thought you were gonna say, but it wasn't that.
I know. I usually scare people to death when I tell them that. That's what makes it so funny. Anyway, I saw the trailer for the first Matrix while I worked there, and I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what it was called. So I went to a local film school in Chicago and talked to one of the advisors and said, "What is that?" And he said, "That's special effects, but an editor puts that together to tell a story." And that's when I thought, "Hey, I could do this." So a few months later, I enrolled in the undergrad program, and I loved editing. And my first class in editing, we edited on film. So it was really archaic, and you had to slice it with a razor and everything. And as frustrating as that was, I loved it. And that's when I knew that that's where I wanted to be. So I just wrapped up an independent film for someone doing a passion project, and I just actually just wrapped it up last week. And the thing was, I was supposed to be just an editor on it, and it turns out her music producer quit on her, her camera person quit, and someone else. So I had to wind up doing color. We picked some random music, and I had to be her audio editor, colorist, and editor. And as frustrating as that was, from where the movie started out to where it ended, she was so grateful. And I was happy to do it because it's learning for me and it's helped me grow as an artist, but I would never do that again. I wouldn't recommend anybody do that because that's why you see those credits and it's like 50 million people on them because you can't make a movie by yourself. When I can see my client is so happy with the product that started out kind of rough and then comes out great, it was just rewarding for me. So that's what keeps it going.
I actually was studying medicine before I transitioned into animation. So
Wow.
after high school, even towards pre-med, I studied up to that point, but then I realized that I didn't have a passion for medicine. And I had the opportunity to see how doctors behave when they're not passionate and how they treat their patients when they don't truly have a love for medicine. And I just didn't want to become another doctor that was indifferent to their patients' pain because I hate my job. And so I realized that throughout my school life, throughout my school career, drawing and creativity and animation was the familiar thread. And I told her I wanted to do animation, which is completely unconventional in Jamaica. Even at the high school I attended, it was a very prestigious high school where only lawyers, doctors, business people graduated. Thankfully, it worked out. I was able to get a scholarship to pursue animation at the university here in Jamaica. And it has been such a blessing since then. I found my passion in writing, in storyboarding, in producing something. My coordinator at university always told me that. He said, Gabrielle, I see you as a producer. But now that I'm actually working in that role, I realize what she meant. And just being a part of the pipeline really brings me a lot of joy. And so for me, my creativity comes from that, from being inspired and from really just taking that moment to be consistent and disciplined in my creativity. Because there are moments where I don't feel it, but I think consistency is a prerequisite to motivation. And so in what I'm doing now in my job, in this fair, that's what I'm trying to practice. And I'd like to know if you guys have had those similar roadblocks with your creativity where you just don't feel like creating. What are your tips for overcoming that roadblock?
Listening to music helps me bring,
Mhm.
that's really interesting. But that's what keeps my creativity going.
It's
But
really nice to be an editor that can listen to music while doing your work. If you're a musician, you can't do that. Like you can't listen to other music while you're making your own music.
All senses are
Unfortunately.
taken over.
Well, it happens sometimes because I work as an assistant to a video game composer. That's my like day job. And it's a really cool day job. I get to learn a lot and I get to do a lot of creative things in my day job that I never really anticipated I would get to do. And the thing is, very often it is very cool to work for a video game composer, and like 60% of the work that I get to do is amazing, but like 40% of the work that I have to do is kind of like manual labor or like stuff that he doesn't have time to do, or like specifically like editing audio things that he doesn't have time to edit, and that stuff can get really 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 boring. And but it's often, you know, stuff that you have to be focusing on it, so it takes brain power, but it's just not interesting. And so very often I've wished that I could feel like, oh, I wish I could listen to music or switch on a podcast. Because it's the kind of thing that, because I also do a little bit of freelance video editing on the side. And I like listening to music when I do that. I can't do that when I'm editing audio. So it's one of those things where I really have to, something that helps me a lot is setting timers for myself when I'm doing something that is not very stimulating that way. If I set timers for myself and set alarms for myself, it gives me kind of a time limit of, okay, I have half an hour to do this thing. I'm not going to go beyond that. And then I can go do something that I actually want to do. And then I'm kind of looking forward to when that alarm rings, and that will give me motivation to kind of do whatever I'm going to be doing after that, which is something that I actually would like to be doing. I feel like when people ask me, like, how do you stay motivated when you're doing slightly less interesting tasks? And I'm like, set alarms. Everyone's like, that's what? It does help. It does help because it basically gives you something to look forward to, but also doesn't let you slack off at the task you're actually doing. So it makes you more efficient in the work. I have a problem if I'm doing something that should take like half an hour and I don't set an alarm, I will take like 2-3 hours to do it, just because it's boring and I'm like distracted by other stuff, and then I'll pull up my phone or I'll like watch a YouTube video in the middle, and that's not efficient. So when I want to be efficient and creative, alarms are actually a very good help for me.
I do literally the exact same thing.
Wow.
I set like if I'm working on like an instrument, you know, I'll set an alarm for like 15 minutes, like a timer, you know. So I make sure that I stay within. I have ADHD, so it's very easily for me to just get derailed into God knows what. So
Me too. Me too. It helps.
Right. So like I set 15-minute timers, especially when it comes to like sound design, some sort of crazy synth I've just made. I'll set, you know, those timers, you know, but I literally I do the exact same thing with the timers, and it's worked out great for me, especially just prioritizing what needs to be done in that amount of time, you know.
So with your timer, with you and Shireen, do you go for a walk when you know when you need to go away from for something? Because I find that helps too. Just going for a walk, 15, 20 minutes, an hour, and then coming back and clearing your head. Do you find that that helps?
It's so easy to always be working, and that's not good. Like it's so easy to always be, you know, I can get up out of my studio and I'm still trying to figure out stuff. I'm still recording vocal notes in my phone and you know, just always going, watching videos on different composers and different techniques, and it never stops. It never ends. So for me, I'll go on a walk, or I'll game. It's just nice to shut my brain off. Like sometimes I just have to look away, and I love to listen. Like I love to listen to my music as if it's the first time. You know, it's so I like to use this like a palate cleanser to help me hear the mistakes or whatever that I may have made, you know, in the past or whatnot.
I'm on board with that. Rest is so essential, especially when you're trying to prevent burnout. And so making yourself outside of work and indulging in things that actually fuel and spark your creativity, like playing games. I'm not a big gamer. The only game I've been playing is Dress to Impress. But I love reading. I love watching shows, anime, TV shows, and films. And so for me, I realized that when I am watching the things that inspire me and observing the world around me, then that in tune sparks my creativity and, you know, fuels me to be more consistent and more disciplined in what I do. So I totally am on board with that. Right.
What anime do you watch?
What anime do I watch?
Yeah.
Bleach and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood are my favorite animes. But I watch everything outside of shonen. I still watch I love shoujo animes as well. And so I don't really stick to one type of anime as long as the story is good.
Yeah.
I'd be so
No, I'm the same way. For me, watching anime has definitely helped spiral my love of film score. I low-key hate film score in animes. I don't know if that must help, but
I'll stand on that. Bleach has a great soundtrack. I believe his name is Shiro Sagasu. His sound design is just amazing. His composure is just amazing. So if I were to recommend you listen to any soundtrack,
Bleach. You know, okay, I watched the original Bleach, and all I hear in my head is that like that weird noise in the background. But I will listen to I know Bleach just came out with a new one, so I will watch and listen to that. But I noticed like the emotions that I have when I'm watching like my favorite shows, or, like my favorite animes or whatever, like that is what I realize like what I want to bring to other people when I'm like scoring films and stuff. You know what I mean? Like just that emotion or like that moment, like when I'm watching reaction videos of people when they saw Goku do Ultra Instinct for the first time. They're just like, like that.
The soundtrack is stuck in your head.
My Hero Academia, and I'm like standing up, I'm like, let's go.
Well, something that I heard.
Those moments I'm trying to encapsulate in like film score. Anyways, what you gonna say?
No, I was going to say something that I've heard my boss say a few times is that the most interesting composers, and he said it because he's a composer, but I'm sure this applies to like other artists as well. The most interesting composers are always like also interesting people. If you're just like, if you are only kind of locked into your own field and not ever, watching anything else or thinking about anything else or taking part in anything else, you just kind of become a very one-track minded person. And therefore, like, it's weird to say that, you think that like giving your whole life to your craft will make you better at your craft, but actually like experiencing more of the world is what brings inspiration to you and actually lets you get better at what you do. And that's something that I think people, I guess, don't necessarily think about, which is that if you're an artist of any kind, art is, how we experience life. And if you aren't living life, then you don't have anything to experience and you don't have anything to make art about. So like living life, and doing other things and having other interests is actually a very important part of being an artist as well.
I agree with that too, because like when Quincy Jones died last week or week before, and they were doing his playing some of the music that he composed, and a lot of musicians that he worked with, I had no idea he worked with, or songs he made, and everything was different, and his approach to composing was just amazing.
This constant feedback loop of, your life inspiring your work and your work inspiring life. And so I mentioned burnout, something it's almost inevitable in some way, shape, or form. For me, I think when I'm handling burnout and trying to protect my creativity, I think for me, I try to know my limits. I think knowing when to say no is also very important. And it speaks to rest and knowing when to restore your creative tank. And so saying no and having that boundary to say, this is not the project that I can take on at the moment, or this project is not aligned with the career goals I have at the moment. Because I remember when I was freelancing, to make ends meet, I do things that I'm not necessarily passionate about, like graphic design. I'm not passionate about graphic design, but I'm good at it. So that was a part of my freelance package. But now that I am honing in on certain aspects of my career, I'd say no to stuff relating to graphic design, for instance. Having those boundaries and staying focused on what actually motivates you and protects your creativity, I think is really important.
I totally agree. I realized like the most burnout I've ever had was taking jobs just for the money. I just realized I will never be happy like that, and it does like stuff your creativity, and it took a while, but I noticed that I can't do that. I can't take everything.
I personally, like, when it comes to saying no to projects, I feel a lot of like FOMO. Like, I feel like, oh, but that project might have been cool. Like, maybe it's not the most exciting project, but it might have been cool. It might have led to something. I don't know. I keep thinking that way. And I realized that was sort of coming from a place of me thinking that like my creativity is a finite resource. And like I need to do these projects because like I'm creative right now, but what if I'm not creative like 5 years later? What if I lose it? Like I had all these thoughts about like, I like music now, what if I stop liking it in 5 years? And it was very like, oh, I need to do all the things that I can do now, like while I have the energy for it, because I might not have it soon. That was a mindset that I needed to get over before I could actually enjoy a lot of my work. I had to be okay with the knowledge that maybe I won't like music anymore in 5 years. That's fine. I'll find something else to do because I am a creative person. And just because my outlet is music right now, even if that changes, like I don't think it will, but even if it does, I know that I will be able to find something else, because that is partially also what creativity is. It's not just dedication to the one field that you're in. It's kind of a way of thinking. It's a mindset, and it's something that can, potentially express itself in many ways.
And what I've found is saying no is imperative, because I've taken jobs where I love the work, but the people I've worked with were extremely toxic, and that affects, I don't even have to go into that. That's
Everybody had somebody in their head right now.
I didn't mean to even trigger anybody. But that's really
Oh
important.
my
You
God.
know, when those signs, when you see those
Mhm.
red flags, run. I've learned that, yeah, I took this job, but I won't ever do this again. And there's
Mhm.
better work and better people to work with. So that's extremely important. The people you surround yourself with.
Another aspect of maintaining my creativity is actually like collaborating with other creatives, because
Mhm.
it's I noticed that when I am working alongside or doing a bit of parallel play with someone who is in a creative field, doesn't even have to be my creative field, but when we're on a task together, where we're working together along or beside each other, that helps me hold myself accountable to my task
Right.
and vice versa. And so I think, again, surrounding yourself with the right people who are creative and they have their own passion projects that they want to fulfill, and working together, even if it's on your separate thing, but being in a space where creativity is thriving and you have different resources you can tap into. If your friend realizes that you're slacking, they're the ones that can say, hey, this is what you said you're gonna do. This is what we know that motivates you, and we know that this is what you're passionate about. So let's stay on task. So I find for myself, I love working in a creative environment where I feel motivated. Just by seeing others being creative, I feel motivated to be creative myself.
So I do exercises in the morning, like music exercises in the morning. So I'll set my timer for an hour, and within that hour I'll create anything that I want, but I have to create it within that hour. And I'll also just use it to sort of tap into like that flow state. Is anybody familiar with the flow state? Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Well,
not
the
a
flow.
musician, so
Oh yeah. Well, flow state is like technically it pertains to anyone. It's just that moment of genius, right? The moment where you're completely locked in and nothing
You're
can
focused.
stop you. You know what I mean?
oh,
The flow
okay. I
state
didn't know what
happens
that
when I'm
was.
playing games sometimes. But the whole
Yeah.
whole idea is for me, it's to continually build that ability to quickly jump into the flow state, right? So I can maximize my creativity. So for me, for the first hour of every day, I set my timer for an hour, and I'll create from start to finish just whatever I have in my heart, whatever I want to create, and then I'll just throw it into a sketchbook of, I've got like hundreds
Mm.
of,
Yeah, a lot
whatever.
So
I'll
of
just put a date
space.
on it. But I'm curious, does anybody else do anything like that to sort of keep yourself sharp, build yourself as an artist or a creator?
I realized that after work, I'd be so tired that I just want to zone out and play a game or something. But
Mhm.
then I remember that I actually have passion projects of my own that I need to work
Right.
on.
Wait a minute, I love doing this.
Feel, I feel all of my creativity into my job and,
Yeah.
not into what's purpose for me. So I said, look, I gathered my creative friends and said, all right, let's at least do a call where we're working on our projects together. And so every Wednesday we do a call and we talk about what we're working on. And we have set like dedicated targets that, all right, for this call, this is what I want to complete. And we talk and we work together and we have fun. And it's really essential that you have fun while you're doing it, and being in that space where you allow yourself to create freely and without stress or pressure of anything. So that is what I do currently. I want to do more of that. I think even, learning certain techniques and skills with like-minded people is also helpful. So it helps to get you started and it helps to keep you going.
I don't know if you know, there's a word for that. It's called body doubling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really helpful. And I do that too. I actually do this a lot I have a friend who's not even like a musician. They're a journalist, but we're in different time zones because they're a friend of mine from India. And usually when I'm working in LA, it's morning for me and it's night for them, and they work at night and I'm a morning person. So it works out perfectly that we just like get on Discord and do our own work. And, every now and then just kind of take breaks, but it really helps to feel like you have someone else there.
Yeah.
And also on the collaboration note and also the exercises note, I have a group chat with 2 other friends. And something that we do sometimes is we'll pick a date when all of us are free. And then 24 hours before the time that we're free, we kind of collaboratively come up with a haiku, which is like a 3-line poem. And so like each of us comes up with 1 line of the haiku. And then within the next 24 hours, we're all musicians, we're all composers. We have to compose something based on that haiku.
Oh, I love that.
And then 24 hours later, we have a Zoom session where we just like share what we did and
Dude, that
kind
sounds
of,
like so much fun.
talk about it. Yeah, it's a really good exercise because, also all of us are working composers. We have a lot of like, projects to deal with and things to think about. It's really nice to kind of just do something that isn't, on like some, it's just something that we can do by ourselves. It's like very, very open-ended. It's not,
No
like
deadlines.
often, no deadlines, but also, film things often have to be very specific, right? They have to be like at this story beat, you want this emotion, and that thing, you want that. Like, I like it, but also it's nice to break from that. And also to see how like 3 of us approach the same idea differently. It's nice to have sessions where you kind of think about things like that. Also, like having the 24-hour limit also helps because it stops you from overthinking and you don't take too much pressure. Oh, this has to be the greatest thing ever. You can just be like, oh, it's something, it's not finished, it's based on the idea, but whatever. It's still, it's still nice to share it with other people.
I feel like when you create in isolation, then you can fall prey to your own negative thoughts. And sometimes you need that encouragement from your community to say, hey, you're actually talented. Don't listen to these negative thoughts and have them hold you down and stop your progress. And so that community aspect, I think, really also helps fuel your creativity because it gets you out of that rut when you're isolated and you're overthinking something when, again, as she was saying, it's meant to be fun and it's meant to really be inspiring and seeing how others, take a stab at the same thing that you're doing. And so I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, because I watch other editors work, even ones who are famous and ones who aren't so famous, and that's encouraging to me as well.
There was another composer that I had talked to that had me do this exercise where he told me to get out a notebook and on one side of the notebook, basically write down all the negative thoughts that I think about myself as a composer, or just in general, right? And then on the opposite side of the sheet, you write down counteracting thought to that, right? So if I think I'm a terrible composer on one side, on the other side, but I'm an incredible composer, right? It's just stuff like that, right? So then you do it all the way down the line, and then I would read those things out loud to myself every day before I started work, just to get myself in a great headspace to create. Basically, like when you speak out loud, you're speaking to your subconscious. So eventually you're going to start believing all of those things. You know what I mean? I know for a while I felt so self-conscious that I wasn't like classically trained like everyone else, So like instead of that, my mind was like, I have a unique perspective that cannot be duplicated. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And I just I think it's a great exercise.
Thoughts can dictate what kind of person you become. And so we have to be very, very particular with how we're thinking and redirecting our thoughts to think on whatever is true about yourself and about what you're doing. And it's so important to remind yourself that it's a journey, not a destination. And that you are to give yourself grace each day. As long as even if you show up with 20% of that creative energy, you still showed up that day, and you can applaud yourself and celebrate yourself for even doing just that, because if you had 20% and you showed up with that 20%, you can celebrate that. And so really paying attention to how we think, because as creatives, emotions tend to really into our work.
And we all live by ourselves a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So
Well, someone in the chat asked a really good question about feedback. Where do we get feedback on our work, and do we have a special person to show it to? And it's a really good question because with the project I worked on, we were halfway through it, and the producer was she was feeling, because she wrote the story and everything, and I said, well, why don't you show your family what you have so far and get feedback? And she was hesitant because, just like what you were both talking about, isn't this
Mm-hmm.
good enough? This sucks. And but I told her, you never know, if you get someone else's eyes on it, you can get a better or more diverse perspective on it. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
by doing that, talking her into showcasing it to her daughter,
Mm-hmm.
she pointed out things about the story that, especially with the editing, that could be enhanced, and that
Mm-hmm.
helps. And sometimes, and as long as it's constructive, if someone says, who said you could compose, this sucks. That's not helpful.
Right.
Why don't you like it? What
Exactly.
is it? Yeah, don't just tell me you hate it. Give me some feedback, something
Right.
real, something I can work with.
Yeah, I have my brothers, my two brothers. I always show them literally everything. They're not even in film, like they're not even in the film score, but I show them anyways. And and honestly, with film score, I've sort of stopped with that, and I'll do with more composers, because I'm not an indie artist anymore, But I feel like as long as you have people you trust who have your best interest at heart. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, you're creating something that needs to be received by a lot of people. Some composers, they're competitive, they're competitive,
Mhm.
or they have a very specific mindset of how music or composition should sound or be or whatever. You know what I mean? And sometimes you can get a negative response that has nothing to do with anything. Right,
Mhm.
right. And it's purely just to sort of knock you out of the way. One thing that I love doing is placing my music in the middle of a playlist. And if I can hear an obvious difference in quality between mine and what's out there, I know it needs more work. And I have to take it back. Like there's no reason for me to be putting this out or to send it to anybody for anything if it's so obviously amateur. you know, you're gonna be your biggest critic. So a lot of
Yeah.
times, the stuff that I'm listening to,
Yeah. And
nobody else hears, but but
Yeah,
but
we can be
still,
our own worst enemies at times.
I
And
know,
we can be hardest on ourselves.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I
and
feel
so
like the people that I like to send my things to for feedback are often like musician friends who also like send me their stuff for feedback. So our feedback
Mm-hmm.
like situation is very, very mutual. I know that, I will send my friend this thing one day and he'll send me his thing next week. It's a very, you know,
Symbiotic
very mutual
relationship.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I have a few friends that I will often send a lot of what I'm doing to. But it's like I know that they like I will do the same thing for them whenever they send their thing to me as
Mm-hmm.
well. And we, often kind of know what to look for in each other's work and stuff like that. And I think it's helpful to have friends like that as well, like musician friends or artist friends who also ask you for feedback on their thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
The people you give feedback to, do they listen? Are they good listeners? Because
Yeah.
Yes.
Arnold, you brought up some musicians who are in competition, and they don't sound like the types that would listen to feedback. It's like,
Right.
this is great. You're
Right.
gonna like
So
it.
when I talk about stuff like that, that's when
Mm.
I know I'm about to get berated. I'll just drop a track into like in a composer group and see what they think of it. Which a lot of you're sending it out to the wolves. So it's like
Yeah.
I get that. If it's something really personal to me or something like that, I am very specific about it. Like,
But
I'm
with
gonna
you and
practice this.
Shireen, do you, when someone says, this, you should take this out, do you fight for what you think should stay of certain melody because you believe it so strongly? And how do you
I
convince
feel
someone to
like
listen? Because if you feel like this belongs and someone else doesn't,
mhm.
do you fight for that?
Well, it
If it's a
depends. For me,
director,
it
no.
depends on the situation. Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Well,
Right. If
if
it's a director, absolutely not. But if it's,
it's a
no.
director, I might, if I really felt strongly about it, I might, push back a little and be like, this is what I was thinking, and this is why I think it should be this way. Usually, if the director, it also depends on the director. But if the director is like a reasonable person, or like friendly person or whatever, like it'll often be a bit of a back and forth. And they'll be like, I was thinking of it this way, and I'll be like, no, I was thinking of it this other way. So then it'll end up being more of a compromise situation rather than a, take this out situation. But sometimes, the client is not like that. Like especially like if you do things like corporate films or ads or whatever, those kind of things, those are very much more like, oh, just follow whatever the instructions they gave because
Yeah.
they're different.
Oh.
It's like a trusted friend says like, oh, I would have done this thing differently, or like I see this thing this way. I would kind of ask them more, what they were thinking again, like why they said that, and then I would see if their reasoning makes sense when aligns with my reasoning, and if it does, then maybe I would incorporate that. And if it doesn't, then maybe I wouldn't. But we'd see. It all depends, I guess, case to case basis.
Yeah, I relate to that. When it comes to receiving feedback, I think as creatives, we should be keen on being able to receive feedback in grace and humility, because as I mentioned before, a lot of emotion can get into our work and sometimes ego. And I think it can create an environment where there is a roadblock instead of progress. And so for me, when it comes to leading a team of creatives, with the feedback that we get from our clients, I've come to realize that, maintaining this positive neutrality in relation to the feedback and to our relationship with the client and our communication with the client is important for that progress, because we also don't want to waste time on our production being at odds when there's a creative compromise that can come out of it. And so I've been on productions where there are odds at play, because of course we're dealing with people that have the expertise in certain areas, and the clients may not be as educated or as experienced, but they know at the end of the day, they know what they want. And so I think walking that fine line between, satisfying their clients' needs or the executive producer's needs, while also staying true to your expertise and trying to, collaborate together to come to a same page conclusion is also a skill that as creatives, I think we should be keen on maintaining alongside our creativity. I think that's an important aspect of it.
They asked if we had any final thoughts.
Yes. Any final tips on a great way to maintain your creativity?
I just feel like we all have a certain level of no's that we have to get before we get the job that we wanted. So don't let that affect your creative process like at all. I'm a freelancer and I'm going to get no's all the time.
Same
And
here.
for a while, I've felt like that affected my music, and it shouldn't, because once again, it doesn't reflect my ability to create, and it doesn't reflect how good I am or bad I am or anything. It just reflects that I either wasn't the person for the project, or somebody had found them months, years before I found them. Stay creative, stay hopeful, stay humble.
Keep doing things. Like I feel like a lot of people kind of don't do things out of fear, or either fear or just like, oh, it's not going to be like amazing, so I won't do it. Experimentation and trial and error is a really important part of creativity, and like making bad things sometimes is also important. So like just keep doing things and don't stop doing things because you think that like it's not going to be like the greatest thing I've ever done. It doesn't matter, just do it anyway.
I'd say also, even when you get to a point, and if you get to a point where your creative energy is exhausted, taking that rest, as we mentioned before, and really that exhaustion could also be a sign that it's time to dedicate some time to either learning something new or revisiting something old. And so take that your body is sending you a message that you need to rest, and that doesn't necessarily mean you need to give up on all your creative aspirations at once, but try, finding that inspiration again, revisiting something that, once inspired you, or going out into the world, observing the world, and finding inspiration just in anything.
Just staying true to yourself, to stay authentic. That's really important as an artist, to not just take jobs because of the money, unless you really have to, but just don't compromise your integrity.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.